Maybe at some point in your life, you've wondered to yourself how some people get so good at predicting, like they don't actually know with absolute certainty what's going to happen, yet they somehow have the ability to guess correctly nearly all the time. Well, there is a good reason for that. People aren't born good at predicting, rather getting good at reading people is just a skill you develop. So your natural question at this point is, of course, Vern, how can I help you get to 10k YouTube subs? To which I'd reply, well, that's very kind of you to ask, but my content is very niche and lacks broad mainstream appeal, and that's okay. But surely your second most pressing question at this point is, how do you develop that skill? First, for clarity's sake, think for a second about what exactly prediction is. It's knowledge of an outcome. While that may seem painfully obvious, that definition implies something important. To know an outcome, you have to have seen that outcome before, which means that being really good at reading people really just sort of comes down to familiarity with a variety of situations and knowing how people behave in them. You've at least once or twice, I'm sure, gotten a read on someone and maybe thought to yourself, well gee, how'd I know he was going to do that? And the answer is fairly simple. Even if you're not explicitly aware of having been in a certain situation before, that gut feeling you have isn't magical, rather it's you picking up on subtle cues you may not be lucidly aware of. Now, just being a good pattern detector isn't enough to make prediction effective to the degree it needs to be at high levels of play, because letting familiar situations present themselves puts you in a passive position where you're kinda at the mercy of your opponent to misstep or do the same obvious things over and over, but you want to be in a more active position where you're controlling the flow of the match to a degree. I've mentioned this in other videos before, particularly my video on neutral, but you eventually hit a level of play where your opponents no longer just gift wrap and hand you mistakes, rather you need to find some way to influence them to behave in certain ways. Naturally, opponents of all levels will have habits that you can cash in on, like, I don't know, jumping from the ledge all the time, but more often than not, good opponents are going to mix their options up fairly consistently, so if you take a passive role in predicting their options and don't find some way to exert influence on them, you're ultimately just making random guesses. So what makes one thing a guess and the other a read? Reading and guessing are similar, but importantly different in that reading is an active form of prediction as I define it, while guessing is a passive form of prediction. And let me explain more what I mean by active and passive. Let's say you're Ganon and your opponent's on the ledge. Statistically, you have no idea what they're going to do if this is the first time they've been on the ledge, because you have no sample to determine why they'd preferentially choose, say, ledge roll as opposed to ledge jump. So you decide to throw an F-smash. Even if you think they're going to do something that F-smash could punish, you've just randomly guessed. Even if your gut instinct was correct and that F-smash connects, I wouldn't say it was a read, but just a guess that happened to work out. In general, and I stress in general, guessing is bad. Reading is good. So, how do we upgrade this guess to a read? The difference between a guess and a read is a reason. You guess when you hope what you do works out, which is another way of saying you don't really have a good reason to do what you did other than hope. So then, we need a reason to throw that F-smash other than hoping the opponent's stupidity stands in for what really should be our own good decision making. Though personally, I feel like 97.2% of the time there are better things to do than F-smash at the ledge as Ganon. Let's say this is the second time your opponent has been on the ledge, and say you ran up to the ledge and tried to ledge trump them the last time they were on the ledge. Because of you spooking them with your attempted ledge trump on the first go around, your opponent now has a reason to do a neutral get up in response to you running toward the ledge, so you F-smash. If it connects and you hit the jackpot, then congratulations, you've just graduated from a guessing ninny to a well-read sir. This, of course, is not a great example, just an extreme one. Not all reads are equal, and generally the reads that balance between lowest risk and highest payoff are the best, which is why Ganon's F-smash isn't really a great example. This sort of guessing, and we've all seen it where we just sort of throw stuff out for basically no reason other than hoping someone's stupid enough to fall into it, is characteristic of mid-level play, and that's because the qualities that make a good reader are among the final frontier of qualities you develop as a player in the highest levels of play, which are knowing how what you do influences your opponent's behavior and using that knowledge to actively push them in a direction where they're likely to behave in a readable way rather than passively waiting for an obvious punishable pattern to emerge on its own. This all said, not all guessing is bad, and sometimes we have to do it. For example, when we have not yet had a chance to influence our opponent very much or don't have a big sample to guess their habits with confidence. But again, in general, doing things motivated by pure hope is very different from doing things motivated by belief, rooted in reasons to do something based on some kind of precedent. Now, all of this might sound really complicated, but let me bring things back to planet Earth a bit and assure you they're really not all that complicated. You might be asking yourself, well, goddamn, Verm, how much you trying to make me think about mid-match? It's already hard enough to do other things. To which I say that while you sometimes can go out of your way to psychologically posture at your opponent and give up an opportunity to hit them just to send a message, most of the time the reads you'll make will be the result of you not deliberately doing things for the sake of making reads later on, but simply understanding how your natural behaviors influence your opponent and recognizing opportunities to take advantage of that influence. Near the beginning of the video, I said that you need to find a way to exert influence on your opponent rather than passively waiting for an obvious pattern to pop out. But with all I've said in mind, the question isn't really one of exerting influence on your opponent just for the sake of making reads, so much as recognizing and understanding how you naturally influence your opponent so you can pick options that are likelier to succeed. Anyway, I think I'm getting pretty close to having beaten this topic to death, so I'll stop there and let you guys simmer on the subject a little bit. Thank you guys, as always, for taking an interest in what I have to say, and if you found this video helpful and would like to support the channel, then you can do so by encouraging it to chase its dreams and that you'll be there for it no matter what. I'll see you guys next video.